Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Single best idea. Thank you for the comments. And Ed Yardeni yesterday. Yesterday we spent our entire single best idea with Yardeni, who's looking at the roaring 20s and has some huge numbers. But I want to make this clear because people are like, OMG, Dow 50,000, Dow 60,000, SPX 8,000. And Ed brought this up, but it got buried in the conversation. If you extrapolate the trend line to get you to those targets on a per year basis, it's not all that much of a lift. I want to make clear that in the Yardeni roaring 20s, he's looking at 7 or 8% per year return. It may happen sooner, it may happen later, but these are not outlandish numbers across the x-axis. I think we'll leave it at that. The Roaring 20s out there got a note from UBS today. We'll effort at UBS as they use the phrase Roaring 20s. We used it with Sophia Drossos. She's with 0.72. This is Steve Cohen's shop, and she has the privilege of working with Dean Mackey. Sophia Drossos, a nominal GDP and the Roaring 20s.
I don't know about Roaring 20s exactly, but I'll tell you a little bit about my forecast. I'm looking for nominal GDP of 5.5% this year, and that's pretty strong. And that it sort of entails that corporate profits will remain strong. So we are seeing the consumer remain strong, and I think maybe that there are some misconceptions about the relative strength of the consumer, maybe some concerns about the fact that goods prices are slowing, and so maybe that's restraining some of the things we're seeing in retail sales. But increasingly, the consumer is also spending on services, and so when I look at consumption overall, it remains at a trend pace, which again makes it hard to see a recession.
Sophia Drossos there, informed comments, the optimism that she has. She's again at 0.72. We love to get outside 3 zip codes. I'm as guilty of this as anyone. Look far west to 6th Avenue. We don't want to do that. We want to go across this nation, and it's really important when people fly in from the left coast. From San Francisco, and he is iconic, Mark Lehmann is with JMP, not JPM, JP Morgan, JMP, which is the aggregate of San Francisco technology history. You go back to Montgomery Securities, Thomas Weissel, Robertson Stevens, the rest of it. Well, there's the technology that's always been in San Francisco. He had wonderful comments, his optimism on the resurrection of San Francisco. But here's Mark Lehmann of JMP on the new tech age.
I think a lot has to do with back then, the hype was just show up, have a meeting, get your capital.
Yep.
Now it's a much more disciplined discussion. I think there's way fewer of these kind of larks, if you will, that are being created. And I think the big firms are collaborating. So it's not just the venture capitalists, but the big installed tech companies. We mentioned Google. Obviously, Microsoft's got a big stake. But I think the dynamism of the investment is way different than it was years ago. Way different.
Mark Lehmann of JMP, as we go into Google's announcements this afternoon and on to August 1st, Amazon and other worthies of this tech era that we're living in. Did an experiment today. We tried Zach Cohen and David Gura at the same time on the politics. I really want to say I've had all sorts of anecdotal evidence, people coming up at lunch or whatever, thanking us for our political coverage. We're sort of in a maelstrom here where we're just trying to survive and get through the day and stay up with the zeitgeist and the news flow as reported by our wonderful news bureau led by Margaret Collins. But I'm really taken by the comments of how we're trying to stay away from the punditry and talk about the more granularity. What a successful effort today with Zach Cohen and David Gura. We'll try to do that again. We're on YouTube. Subscribe to Bloomberg Podcast. That's all I can say. I sound like everybody else on YouTube. That's how it works. Subscribe to Bloomberg Podcasts, and we're there for you each morning, 7 a.m. Wall Street time, on Apple CarPlay, on Android Auto, both with new platforms coming out. And, of course, this on Apple Podcasts, Single Best Idea.